Okay, this is a real quick video just to talk about two things: the National Sheriff's Association and this thing called civil asset forfeiture, which is just a euphemism for you don't have any dang rights in this country to personal property if the sheriffs say you don't. Now, I want to show you one thing real quick. This right here is Sheriff Jim Skinner. Jim Skinner wrote this letter to Dan Quick Draw McGraw Red Flag Law Crenshaw about H.R. 1525, which seeks to curtail police power as it relates to civil asset forfeiture. And this letter, written by Sheriff Jim Skinner from Texas, tells Dan Crenshaw how he should vote against H.R. 1525, which curtails their power as it relates to civil asset forfeiture, bemoaning the fact that we won't have the power to railroad our fellow Americans. But he doesn't actually put it like that, because he says, hey, we need to keep Americans safe from the Mexican drug cartels. If you take away our power for civil asset forfeiture, then you're going to basically hamstring us and tie our hands behind our backs, and we won't be able to fight the Mexican drug cartels. Well, guess what? Every instance of civil asset forfeiture, every horrific story that I can pull up on the internet doesn't have anything to do with combating Mexican drug cartels. But you know what it does have to do with? It has to do with picking out Americans and treating them as though they are guilty before they get a chance to prove themselves innocent. And we are talking about taking vast amounts of cash. If you do the research from 2003 to 2018, over 63, not million, $63 billion of assets have been taken from the American people under the auspices of, we believe that this property, this car, this house, this amount of cash was involved in some kind of a drug crime. So we need to relieve you of it, and we need to put it into our vaults. Even to the point of, I can't remember what year it was, 2017 or 2018, the FBI, it was March of 2021. The FBI raided this thing called U.S. Private Vaults in Beverly Hills. Over 1,400 people had safe deposit boxes in this vault, and the FBI took over $83 or $86 million worth of assets, including family heirlooms, gold jewelry, diamonds, cash, you name it. Everybody got their safe deposit boxes raided just because U.S. Vaults was involved in some kind of money laundering scheme. Most of the people who had their safe deposit boxes in U.S. Vaults had nothing to do with the money laundering scheme. So the thing that I'm learning is that there are some types of evidentiary standards used in the burden of proof analysis, and there are three of them. The one that civil asset forfeiture goes by is preponderance of evidence. So in this letter to Dan Crenshaw by Jim Skinner, Sheriff Jim Skinner, H.R. 1525 seeks to move from preponderance of evidence to clear and convincing evidence. Well, Sheriff Jim Skinner has a serious problem with this, and he says it needs to stay with preponderance of evidence, because if they go to clear and convincing evidence, then they're going to lose a whole bunch of the assets that they relieve from the American people, because now there's a greater burden of proof on the government to prove that these people were actually involved in a crime, which, justifies them taking your stuff, is the bottom line. So the two things that I want to talk about in this video, and I want to do, and you let me know if you want me to do this, but what I aim to do is do a longer video talking specifically about the Sheriff's Department and the evils, the ever-present evils of civil asset forfeiture, and how it literally ruins people's lives. So I constantly hear, hey, the Sheriff's Department, it's basically our saviors. That's the elected officials that should step between you and the federal bureaucracy who wants to take your stuff. This sheriff literally says that he represents, I don't know if you can see that, 3,086 sheriffs across the nation. And I did a light bit of research on Google here and asked, are there any sheriffs that stand up against civil asset forfeiture? I'm not even talking about deputies. Are there any sheriffs in any county? There's 3,143 counties in the United States and 3,081 sheriffs. And this guy says he represents Well, he represents 3,086 sheriffs. I only found that there's 3,081, so I don't know if 5 more got added or whatever. But not one of those sheriffs in one of those counties has stepped forward and said, hey, I'm against, don't put my name on Sheriff Skinner's list. I'm against civil asset forfeiture. Not one. And we are not talking about police department or police chiefs. We are talking about sheriffs who took the oath, and they're the ones who are supposed to have the legitimate constitutional power to protect your right to be secure in your person, houses, papers, and effects. In other words, be secure in your property. If it's true that Sheriff Skinner represents 3,086 sheriffs, we got a serious problem, because that means every one of these sheriffs thinks it's okay to steal your money so that we can protect the people from the Mexican drug cartels. What did Benjamin Franklin say? If you give up a little essential liberty for politically promised or sheriff promised security, we're going to protect you from the Mexican drug cartels, then you deserve neither liberty nor security. If you desire to be ignorant and free on this kind of thing, specifically with civil asset forfeiture, you desire something that never was and would never shall be. I mean, this runs all over me. So there's a couple types of evidentiary evidence, like I said: preponderance of evidence, clear and convincing evidence, which is a weightier standard, which is what HR 1525 seeks to go to, that Sheriff Skinner's got a serious problem with. And then the last bit is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Civil asset forfeiture declares you guilty, and you have to prove your innocence. They don't have to prove that you're guilty. You have to prove you're innocent. There's a whole lot. This is only 3 pages long. And by the way, I got a hold of this by Leto's Law. And when I listened to what he had to say, I did a little bit of digging. There's a lot that has to be said about this. And I want to try to distill it in about a 10, 12, max 15-minute video. But everybody needs to see this video. And I'll show you stories of innocent people where the seizure of their assets had absolutely nothing to do with any kind of drugs. Oh, you want to hear another crazy statistic? They could literally get the dollar bills out of your wallet. Let's say you only have $53 in your wallet. They can take one of those dollar bills and they can put it in a tester, and more than likely it will test positive for cocaine, because 90% of all US currency tests positive for at least one drug, and that's cocaine. And they can use that as a justification to take your stuff. You could take the dollar bills out of the cop's pocket who just took your property because your dollar bills tested positive for cocaine, and his dollar bills will test positive for cocaine. You can't win on this thing right here. You're not innocent until proven guilty in America. This isn't land of the free, home of the brave. This is land of the fee, home of the slave. So if you want me to do a video on this that's more in depth, there's Jim Skinner's signature right there. He is the Treasurer and Chair of Government Affairs Committee for the National Sheriff's Association, which boasts 3,086 sheriffs in the United States of America who want civil asset forfeiture to continue to come down upon and crush the skulls of Americans. And there's this guy's face right here. Can you see his face? That right there is Jim Skinner. That is your enemy. Anybody who's for civil asset forfeiture, and I don't know what became of this HR 1525. It looks like it's still in committee or whatever. I don't know if they're going to pass it or if they're just going to reject it. But leave your thoughts about this. If you want me to do an extended video, this is a video that everybody's going to have to see, because all Americans, none of us is greater than all of us. And we all need to stand up against this injustice. And if there's anything that's unjust, it's civil asset forfeiture. And if there's anybody propagating injustice in the land, it's all of the sheriffs who should be protecting and serving us. They're not serving and protecting, they're harassing and collecting. And there's not a greater collection instrument than civil asset forfeiture. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. If you want to support the channel further, grab a hard-hitting conversation starting shirt, become a channel member, but more importantly, stand for your rights. Know what your rights are, stand for them, walk in them, exercise them, because if you don't exercise them, you will lose them. I will see you in the next video.